Welcome to the Darkstream, VoxDay, voxday.blogspot.com, and unauthorized.tv. Well, if you're tuning in, then you have probably seen at least some of the coverage of President Trump's speech at the Alamo in Texas today. And, this has a lot of people upset. It has a lot of people, I wouldn't say completely despairing, but I would say that a lot of people are disappointed, extremely disappointed. Trump uttered the words Biden administration. And, clearly using the words Biden administration means that Don Jr. is going to be arrested, Giuliani is going to be arrested, Ivanka is going to be turned into a sex slave for the Illuminati. So, anyhow, the thing is that there's a lot of very bad news out there right now for the MAGA forces. There's a lot of bad news out there for the pro-Trump forces. There's a lot of bad news out there for people who believe in the American ideal, in Heritage America, American posterity, etc., etc. Michael Yon came out with a statement today, and Michael Yon's a good guy. He's, I think, definitely on the right side, and he came out with a rather intriguing and I would say very upsetting statement. It says the Insurrection Act has not been invoked, which actually I would tend to agree with. I don't see any sign that the Insurrection Act has been invoked. You notice, by the way, that he uses the proper term, invoked. People like that English guy, Simon Parks, who were saying that the Insurrection Act has been signed. Well, that's true. It was signed back in 1807. State of emergency invoked here in D.C. Have been with Rudy Giuliani the past 2 days. I would know if Insurrection Act invoked, and so would you. Trump will leave office. Biden is in. This is a fact. I don't make the facts, but I do report them. I would not be surprised at all if Trump, Don Jr., and Rudy Giuliani are charged and arrested soon. I'm seeing many things that you are not seeing. All of the above is true, and more. Now this sounds, tremendously bad. It sounds as if it's not even about President Trump conceding and surrendering or cucking or anything like that. It sounds like he's been completely defeated, right? But if you look a little bit closer at some of the wording, it's a little bit odd. I would know if Insurrection Act invoked, and so would you. Okay. In other words, it's not about rumors, it's about actual action. Trump will leave office. That's a fact. Donald Trump will leave office someday. Doesn't say now, doesn't say tomorrow, doesn't say by January 20th. Biden is in. In what? This is a fact. Okay? So he says, I don't make the facts, but I do report them. I would not be surprised at all if... So then he goes, he says, these are facts, and then he says, I wouldn't be surprised at all. And then he mentions something that clearly is not a fact. He's talking about non-facts. So the question is, does Michael Yon genuinely believe what he's saying there? Or is he playing word games? So then we get this document that's come out recently. And this is, there's some question about whether this is actually legitimate or not, but it says on January 20th, 2021, In accordance with the Constitution, confirmed by the states and the courts, and certified by Congress, President-elect Biden will be inaugurated and will become our 46th Commander-in-Chief. To our men and women deployed and at home, safeguarding our country, stay ready, keep your eyes on the horizon, and remain focused on the mission. We honored your continued service in defense of every American. And then it's supposedly signed by Mark Milley, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff from the Army, John Hyten, U.S. Air Force General, James McConville, Army General, David Berger, U.S. Marine Corps General and Commandant, Michael M. Gilday, Navy, Charles Brown, Chief of Staff of the Air Force, John Raymond, General U.S. Space Force, and Daniel Hokanson, General Chief of the National Guard. Barracuda says, my Army unit sent that out to us today. Interesting. Another thing that's interesting is confirmed by the states. Typically in these type of letters, states is capitalized. I'm not saying that it's a fake on the basis of that, but I do question the assumption of its legitimacy on that basis. But what I find more interesting about it is that what's the point? You know, it really strikes me as a remarkable amount of overkill. You know how when they talk about it's important for people trying to sell something not to overdo the sale. You know, if you are trying to sell a car and the person has more or less decided that they're going to buy it, if you keep selling them, if you keep pushing them, if you keep doing that, then they start to wonder, well, wait, what's wrong with this? And frankly, that's where I think that, you know, it should be for everybody. Why are they pushing this so hard? What are they so terrified of? Because they are clearly and obviously very frightened of something. And so I think that it's important to consider the message. I think that it's important to think about what is the symbolic rhetoric of Trump's speech at the Alamo tonight. And people say, oh, well, it's because the Alamo was a defeat, dun, 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 dun. No, the whole point of the Alamo was not surrendering. So what I take from the speech at the Alamo is not any of the words, is not the reading the tea leaves of Donald Trump's expression. I mean, if you're going to do that, then you'd have to assume that, oh, well, Pompeo thinks everything's in the bag and everything's going peachy keen. If you don't take that seriously, then you shouldn't take it seriously that the I know that he was in Alamo, Texas, not at the Alamo. The point is that symbols matter. And I even think that the reason that he would go to Alamo, Texas, as opposed to the actual Alamo, is because he doesn't want to misuse the actual historical and revered place. But simply by choosing that place to speak sends the very important message: don't surrender, don't despair, don't give up. I haven't. I don't change my analytical opinion of the situation on the basis of tea leaves and facial demeanors and word choices. There was a point to the speech, though. That's what I'm saying. Why fly to Texas for such a... I agree. The talk was downright infuriating. The talk was almost maddening. Pompeo's speech was just about as bad. And, you know, here you've got two of the central figures in the greatest political drama, the greatest national drama of the past 20 years. And these guys are giving generic political speeches. People who don't even normally give generic political speeches, especially Trump. So, you know, the first of all, you've got the strong rhetorical reference to the Alamo and not surrendering. You've also got a proof of life. You know, he hadn't appeared at all. And so, and then the other thing too is that, as I've pointed out again and again and again and again, that if you're going to achieve a double envelopment, you have to make sure that the enemy believes it's winning. You have to make sure that the enemy keeps entering the trap. You have to make sure that the enemy doesn't run away. And so, you know, we'll have to wait and see. I've been saying this from the beginning. Don't conclude anything until January 20th at the soonest. Okay? Furthermore, it's important to understand that we're not in a political situation here. This is now a military situation, which means that there's always going to be an amount of disinformation. It's not Trump's job to maintain your spirits at this point. He's already knows what he has to do. The die is already cast. Events are already in motion. And so be patient, be optimistic, and don't think that you're going to figure it out on the basis of reading the tea leaves. You know, be positive. It's never, ever over till it's over. And there's no reason, on the basis of one speech in Texas, which was mostly beside the point, that everything's over. It's not. Some of you were asking about the dog whining. I actually have a Vishla sitting here. He ate some things that he probably shouldn't have eaten earlier today, and so we just wanted to make sure that he was not sleeping somewhere where if he gets sick, it will be difficult to clean up. So anyhow, go ahead and fire away with the super chats and whatnot now if you wish. He's a good boy. So again, stop reading the tea leaves. Oh, well, he seemed tired. He seemed weak. I mean, if the guy says one of his favorite books is Sun Tzu, then I wouldn't put too much stock in him appearing weak. What odds do you give the crossing? I would say, you know, I'm at 85% where I've been all along. You know, for me, there were only two issues. Number one, did he have the courage to do it? And, you know, would he have the nerve at the right time? And number two, would the military obey him? And I see no sign of either not being the case. Let's see. Carolina Swamp Fox sends $20. Thank you. We're certainly finding out who the collaborators are at this point. Exactly. If it's a military situation, then why does Inauguration Day matter at all? Well, it doesn't really. It doesn't particularly. I mean, I personally wouldn't worry about anything much until I wouldn't be confident that nothing was going to happen until after probably January 30th or so. Spigula 13 says, if none of us are going to figure it out, why trust so much the plan? Who, what is Q? Doesn't matter. What makes you so confident you aren't being played? By whom? For what purpose? See, right there you convey your lack of self-worth and your obsession with your fear of failure. It makes literally no difference to me, living over here in Europe, what happens? None whatsoever. I mean, it could, a few years down the road, maybe a little bit. You know, oh, well, you might say something that turned out to be wrong. Big deal. It's happened 1,000 times before. Sure, it'll happen 1,000 times more. So the whole point of life is not to avoid the possibility of saying something that might turn out to be incorrect. T. Parker says, thanks for helping me understand and stay hopeful. You're very welcome. KD says, great streams, some of your best stuff. False hope is better than no hope, as you said. Well, here's the thing. You can't know whether hope is true or false until after the fact. So hope is better than no hope. Whether things work out or not, it's always better. If you're not going to play the game, then just go home. Just be quiet and go home and, you know, live your life in fear. Dave Lyman says, it was great when Trump said, they're here for the gravy. No doubt that Owen will be absolutely convinced. It's like, Trump is a bear! Wrath of the Monarch says, you've been away from Minnesota for a while now. Do you still say oofta when picking things up? I never said oofta when picking things up. I'm not a Scandinavian Minnesotan. I did pick up a number of speech patterns. That was not one of them. My Shield is discussed said, didn't he just sign an executive order last month cutting the Joint Chiefs out of the SecDef succession? Yes, I believe so. I don't know what that has to do with anything, frankly. But again, I don't put much stock in that particular document. And apparently people have been having trouble trying to confirm the legitimacy of that document. Luke Hood says, thanks, VD. You're very welcome. Welcome to Silverpack, Derek Griffey. Joseph Curtis says, just saying hi. Hi. Keep up the good work, pal. I will attempt to do so. I'm glad you appreciate it. Dirty Smoky sends $15 from Australia. Why does that not surprise me? And Jesus Metalhead says, appear weak when you are strong and strong when you are weak. Sun Tzu. Isn't Trump a fan? Yes, that's exactly why I think that it's just a massive mistake to try to read the tea leaves and so forth. I mean, I'm a lot more influenced by the fact that the other side appears to be so frightened. Now, that doesn't mean that what they fear is necessarily going to happen any more than what you fear is going to happen. But it's important to you somebody's unhappy. The Vizsla did not like the Texas speech. So, but yeah, the point. Kenneth says, "I've been a man with no hope. You were already beaten. That's why they try so hard." Exactly. And so, I mean, sometimes if somebody's tired, it's just because they're tired. They're tired of the nonsense. It doesn't mean that you think you're losing. Captain Radio says, "Can't we do better than Trump and the current base? Can't we engineer a more cohesive and powerful party? And don't we have to if we want to overtake such an all-encompassing purge?" No, I don't think so at the moment. I mean, you have to play with the team you got. Now, we can certainly improve considerably on a party that's run by a bunch of traitors, cucks, and liars, and I think we should. But I've been saying for years, stop listening to people like Ben Shapiro and Rich Lowry and Jonah Goldberg and Dennis Prager. They will and did lead you astray. Only listen to people who speak the truth. Once you know that somebody's a liar, stop paying attention to them. M. Anthony Dunn sends 20 from Canada and says, "It's extremely unlikely we are being played because it makes no sense that the globalists would go to such lengths to create a base that hates them so much that they want to see them all at the end of a rope." That does seem a little bit unlikely, I would say. I'm not particularly interested in starting a Telegram channel. I mean, I just put my blog up. It's the minimum of effort, and it's very easy for people to share. It's a link. You can copy the text and email it. What did you see in Trump that made you trust him? Two things. First of all, I saw someone who had the best that the world had to offer and turned his back on it. He's someone who clearly cares about the nation. He didn't have to do it. He wasn't, chasing money and power like Obama. He wasn't a creature of some machine like the Bushes. He wasn't even an idealist like Ronald Reagan. He was someone who desperately wanted to try to stop the collapse and devolution of his nation. So that was one thing. The other thing is that I was impressed by him on a personal level when I met him in 1988. I was at a very small and very elite party. There were maybe 25 people there. And what really impressed me was the fact that even a big shot alpha like Trump had the ability to turn it off. It was really interesting because he wasn't the center of the attention there. Henry Kissinger was. And he was absolutely fine with it. And I remember that struck me at the time as slightly odd because I'd always considered him to be, a bit of a, fame-chasing celebrity sort, an attention whore. And he absolutely wasn't. He was a lot more chill than you ever would have thought. So that was just, a minor brief encounter that It was just something that I'd sort of mentally noted. I didn't think it was a big deal at the time. I certainly didn't think that it was, um, you know, meeting the future president of the United States. Clear Sky says, Vox, can we still hold on to the hope of a single envelopment? The best Midwest speech tick is saying, oh, when surprised. I probably do that. So, I think we can still hold on to the hope of a double envelopment. I still think that's the most likely outcome. You know, but again, remember, I mean, first of all, there is a plan there. Plans don't always work. 50% of the time in the NFL, the game plan fails. So stop thinking that just because of the possibility that something doesn't turn out the way that you hope it will means that there was never any plan to do anything. That's just absurd. Let's see here. My Shield is Disgust says, what is the point of talking about political parties when elections are confirmed fake? Well, exactly. There's no point in paying any attention to politics again if President Trump does not remain in charge and clean up the system. I mean, I'm not bothered by this because I believe that, you know, things have been over since 2004. You know, I'm not sitting here going, that's why people are like, but this would mean the end of our democracy. You're like, okay, first of all, it wasn't a democracy, it was a republic. The whole point of the republic is limiting democracy, but it hasn't been a republic since 1865. So, you know, you're like, where to start? But the status quo of the politics of empire since 1865 were dramatically altered in 1965, and they are essentially over now if the elections, you know, if the elections are not overturned. So that's absolutely correct. I mean, politics in the United States is already over. It's done. One way or the other, it's done. Can it be restored? Only if the double envelopment takes place. We'll see. Dear SDL, you predict balkanization of the US by 2033, and Martin Armstrong predicts loss of confidence in government by 2032. I think he's 12 years late. So it seems both your predictions are aligned. He predicts World War. Well, to a certain extent, there already is a world war going on because that's what the whole unrestricted warfare thing is all about. But it's not what we think of as, you know, violent, awful war with lots of death and so forth. See, this is the kind of thing that makes me feel more confident. The media is talking about putting Josh Hawley and Ted Cruz on no-fly lists. That's crazy talk. I mean, that's just random, crazy lunacy coming out of the mouths of very, very frightened people. That makes me feel confident. Iran blackout reported on Twitter 6 hours ago. Odds of Trump's speech being a distraction for an op? Entirely possible. I mean, you know, one of the things that the European conspiracy theorists believe is that all of this stuff is a distraction for a war with Iran. Personally, I think it's more likely that setting up what looks like a war with Iran would be good cover for taking care of domestic opposition, domestic enemies, but you know, we'll see. What's new with the Italy news? There actually is genuine Italy news, and it's directly related to Leonardo SPA. The Italian media has been full of the arrest of, I believe it was 10 people, all of whom were associated with Leonardo, and they had something set up with Google Pay, and about 10 or 12 million dollars was paid in black money through this channel between 2012 and 2018. We don't know that this is related to the hack of Leonardo that resulted in the arrest of the IT guy, the IT director, I believe it was, and we don't know if this is related in any way to the affidavit that came out relating to interference with the U.S. election. There he is. But there were actual arrests related to 3 companies tied to Leonardo SPA, and I believe 10 individuals. So there is definitely something going on in Italy, without question. This hasn't. I don't believe this has made it to the U.S. media yet, but I was reading it in the Milano newspaper, in La Repubblica, and it was in at least 3 other Italian papers that I saw. Durlex Sedlex says the only reason millions of people who never voted in their lives was to see if it was honest enough to save. We'll get the answer we were looking for one way or the other. That's exactly right, and that's also very significant. You know, one way or another, we're going to find out at least the partial truth of the situation. Is the Pope in jail? No idea. Could the Camorra have anything to do with it? No, this is something that is connected to the U.S. Leonardo is tied to NATO, and it's basically the equivalent of a second-tier defense contractor in the U.S. William Chad Newsom said, Vox, thanks for your staunch adherence to hope. I agree completely. But do you have any thoughts on what legacy Americans should do if Biden gets in? None at all. I haven't given the matter any thought whatsoever. Hey Vox, are you uninterested in discussing the Trinity one of these days on a stream and its origins or lack thereof in Scripture? None whatsoever. First of all, I'm not interested in discussing theology publicly because I'm not a theologian, and I don't take any modern theologian seriously. Second, I've read the part of the Cambridge Medieval History series that deals specifically with the whole range of the pre- and post-Nicene struggles and the various parties involved. Most people have no idea who was involved, even what the names of the various factions were, what the basis for the arguments were, how things were sorted out, etc., etc. So there's just no purpose in talking about it. All I will say is that those who say that I do not subscribe to the Nicene Creed, that I'm a Christian who doesn't subscribe to the Nicene Creed, that's totally false. I do subscribe to the Nicene Creed. I do not subscribe to the Niceno-Constantinian Creed. 325, not 385, if you want a summary. What happened to contemplations on the Tree of Woe? I have no idea. I was wondering about that myself and would like to find out. Strong's Good says, thank you guys. I have a good community here. We are all Trump supporters. I'm not black-pilled, but I am dubious. I'm at the point where I need to see some action before I jump completely back on. I mean, that's fine, but here's the thing. You're not relevant now. None of us are. We've already done our part, and now we're part of the audience. So, people are like, well, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to think this. Who cares? Your opinion doesn't matter. My opinion doesn't matter. What's going to happen is going to happen regardless of what you or I think or say. Understand that. Accept that. We can discuss it. We can control our how we feel and how we think, but it's not about us. We are not the actors. I demand. Oh, I got it wrong. Sorry. It's not the Niceno-Constantinian Creed. It's the Niceno-Constantinopolitan Creed. That's another reason not to support that. If you can't say it, you shouldn't support it. Trump is going to join unauthorized. We'd really, really have to get the whole manual invitations thing fixed if that helped. Would you be interested in selling music by independent musicians online? Not really. We might actually do something similar to unauthorized in the music space, but it wouldn't be focused on selling music because, frankly, that's not people are not accustomed to paying for music anymore. Yes, I know all about Fatima. I don't necessarily take it all that seriously. So, any thoughts on Spengler? I don't like either of them very much. So, anyhow, that's about all I've got to say, and it sounds like you guys are all questioned out, so that's cool. I welcome to all of you who have joined unauthorized. About 600 people have done so in the past week. Welcome. And if you haven't joined unauthorized yet, I strongly encourage you to do so. It's growing several videos every day. We're now well over 1,800. We've got the new 1.1 interface going on web and mobile, and it is only going to get better. Don't worry about DLive. That will be that's under control. It's all good. So have faith, and as I said before, if you can't trust the plan, and I would say trust the president. If you can't trust the president, then go read some Marcus Aurelius. Learn the benefit of Christian Stoicism when things are good, when things look bad, but never, ever give up hope. Unauthorized is great. Last update crushes. Congratulations, Working Class Bear. You win. I'm Vox Day. This is the Darkstream.